It's the Prog Rock Vinyl Tag 2021. Man, don't want to live in the 2020. I should move on from that. And okay, let's do the official name. Hello everybody, this is Nathan on Shuffle, and I've got a really interesting kind of bonus video to showcase today. This is the infamous Prog Rock Vinyl Tag 2021, and I've seen this pop up in a lot of different people's videos. I've seen it in a lot of my kind of fellow YouTubers who do a lot of the same type of content as me, YouTubers that have inspired me to start my show and who have been really supportive and helpful as I've kind of started this journey. So I wanted to shout them out and point you towards their versions of this. First I saw Neve, the prog nerd, do this. I believe she did a version of it with her dad. That was a really cool feature. Similitude of Prog did a version of it as well, and he's been very supportive of my channel and has been commenting on a lot of my things. So Notes Reviews, was a huge inspiration for me kind of starting my channel, and I appreciated his take on it as well. And then Fairly Secret Music was the latest one I've seen, who really kind of gave me that final push to do it, as I saw his and I really appreciated it, and he's kind of commented on a few of my videos. So I'm really appreciative of those YouTubers and their support and the things they've brought to the table in their own channels that have inspired me. So just wanted to shout them out first and foremost and give them a lot of credit for this. But the vinyl tag idea, as far as I know, is to follow this kind of prompt of these multiple questions about different albums, and for you to kind of find an album in your collection that matches these prompts. It kind of tag, I guess it's a tag because it kind of moves from one to the next as different people take on this challenge, as it were. So just as a disclaimer, as I give my picks for this, I'm a fairly new vinyl collector. I've only started collecting vinyl in the last few years, so my selection was slightly limited. If I was doing this with CDs, I'd have a lot more selection and choices. So there might even be one on this list that I don't really have a selection for. So bear with me on that and be a little bit kind to me. So, and some of these choices may be kind of the big ones that you'd expect to see, nothing too crazy. I hope to have a little bit of kind of unique things in this mix, but a lot of it's kind of centered on the classics. I tried with this list to not do any repeat artists. There is one repeat artist because I couldn't figure out a way around it based on the questions and based on the vinyls that I have. So without further ado, let's get into it and talk about these different albums. So there's 20 prompts here, and I'm going to go through and talk hopefully very briefly about each choice. So here we go. Let's start with the first prompt. So the first prompt here is, what is the album that got you into prog? And maybe it shouldn't be so tricky, but I kind of took this in an interesting direction. I decided to go with this one. This is Abbey Road by the Beatles, of course. Classic, but is it a prog album? Maybe that's stretching the bounds a little bit of what prog is, but I considered it as what got me into prog because it's really what sparked my love of music, and my love of music that was kind of different and was willing to do some experimentation. And I think especially with side 2, how it's this long suite of songs that does that, I think that primed me for progressive rock to come. And really the main album that did get me into prog, I'm going to be talking about soon, and had to choose it for a different option. So I thought this would work for the album that got me into prog, because really the Beatles is where my love of music first started. So I owe a lot to them, and they led me down the path into prog, in my opinion. So that's the first one. Next, show an album with 4 or less songs. Of course, in prog, this isn't that hard of a challenge, as everyone's been saying. This is, I tried to pick one that was a little bit off the beaten path, maybe. This is Snow Torch by Fido. I really love this. Fido's a very underrated artist to me. I think he should be way more appreciated. And to me, this may be his best work. It's only 4 tracks, well, 3 and maybe kind of a hidden ender track, but it's really Snow Torch parts 1 and 2, and in the middle Helix sandwiched in between. So it's definitely only 4 tracks or less, and it's a great album that I recommend to everyone. It's super cool and classic, and I really love it. It's a great album that everyone should go out and get. I believe it's from 2011. It's really cool. So Fido, Snow Torch. All right, next, show an album on the Vertigo label. So this is I had to kind of look this up. I've heard a little bit just from my roaming around in Prague what the Vertigo label is. It wasn't something I was super familiar with, but apparently Gentle Giant was on the Vertigo label. So luckily I had an out for this, and I could feature Gentle Giant. This is Octopus. You can see it's still in the wrappings. And this really is the album that got me into prog as well. But I decided to choose it for this, for the Vertigo label, because I didn't have many other options for Vertigo label. But my dad showed me Octopus when I was young, and it blew me away. It was so experimental and interesting and so diverse and had a lot going on in it. It immediately struck me. Kind of a crazy, complex prog album to start my journey on. But this is one that's a huge favorite of my dad's and really started me on that journey. So I thought it was worth bringing up here. And you could see even on the back, my dad wrote a little like fact sheet because he got this for me for my birthday, 35th birthday, as you can see. So just a cool little memento there. Partly why I haven't unwrapped it is because I really like this thing that he brought up. So you could maybe screenshot it. It's a little bit silly, but it's fun. Next we have show an album with epic keyboards. And when I think about epic keyboards, one of the names that comes to mind in classic prog is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Of course, Keith Emerson is a genius on keyboards and does so much. And this is my favorite album by them, Trilogy. So cool. I really enjoy all of the keyboard work throughout all their albums. Of course, Tarkus is a huge, epic with so much keyboard madness going on. So this is really a great album that I really treasure in my collection. So wanted to mention it here. I think there's a lot of great keyboard moments on it. So next we've got show an Is This Prog album. And this is kind of a fun prompt because this is a niche that I really like, is this kind of bands that do prog sort of, but maybe wouldn't completely be labeled prog, but they have those influences and fit amongst a progressive fan base. And one that I wanted to highlight here is Kendo, or Reign of Kendo, and their album Happy However After. This came out a couple years ago, and it's one of my favorite groups. Would you call them prog? Probably not necessarily, but I think they have a lot of proggy elements to them. They have this kind of jazz rock vibe, and they do a lot of different things that are well beyond just the normal pop music. So I really love the band, and I think they do some really interesting experimental things with what they've got. And I can't wait for their next record. I'm hoping it's coming and it's on the horizon. They've done a lot of tracks through their Patreon, which I would recommend if you like them to check out their Patreon. But definitely a cool album here that I really like, and I think it's really worth checking out. So this is Reign of Kendo, Happy However After. All right, giving myself a little bit more space to play with here. Okay, so next we have, this is the prompt that I'm kind of going to have to take a big zero on, I think. And it's show a prog album from an artist or band out of Germany. I don't believe I currently have one. I do have one on order. I did order the latest album from Sylvan called 1 to 0, and they're from Germany. So that would be my choice. I'll put the picture up. Not quite, fair because I don't have it in my hands yet, but it's on its way. It's being shipped to me now. So that would be my choice of an artist or band out of Germany. I think they're excellent, and their new album is definitely a strong one and will be featured soon on the channel. So a little bit of a teaser there as well. So please check out the new Sylvan album. It's really incredible. For all fans of modern prog, neo-prog, I think they're an excellent band that often gets overlooked. So next we've got show a prog album from an artist or band out of the UK. So this is one of my favorite UK bands. I wanted to feature something a little bit more modern because, of course, there's tons of old school UK prog bands. But I went with Big Big Train, and this is their album, The Grand Tour. I really like this one. This is their previous album. They have a new one coming out soon, Common Ground, which I've been talking about on the channel. I'll definitely be doing a review of it. They're one of my favorite bands. And I thought they were perfect for this prompt because they do a lot of music that has lyrics about the heritage of the UK and of England and so forth. So I thought they really fit the bill of this. One of my favorites, and I'm proud to have their albums in my collection. So definitely a strong mention here for Big Big Train. I think they're excellent. Then we move to show a prog album from an artist in North or South America. And I'm going with kind of a classic here. I have a lot of them. I really love American prog bands. And so this is kind of a group that I have a strong affinity for. So there's lots of choices. But I went with the classic. And this is, of course, Kansas, Left Overture. I thought this would be a cool one to mention because it's one of my favorites. I think Kansas is one of the best prog bands. Sometimes they may not even be kind of in that conversation because they are so much associated with classic rock because of their big staples, Carry On Wayward Son, which is on here, and Dust in the Wind, of course. But if you listen to all the tracks here, there's so much prog here, and they did so much complex, cool things that they should be uttered in the same breath to me as Yes and Genesis and those bands. So definitely one of my favorite North American prog bands, Kansas. Show a prog gateway album, one you would use to introduce someone to the genre. Maybe this is going a little too far into prog, maybe I should ease the listener into it a bit more, but I feel like this is a good one. This is kind of a classic, heralded as one of the best prog albums ever, and it's Genesis, Selling England by the Pound. But I think there's a lot that even non-prog fans can love. My mom really loves this album, even though a lot of prog albums are just not to her taste. There's just a lot of beauty and a lot of pastoral, sections that I think can be appreciated by a wider audience. Cinema Show is just beautiful, and there's just so much on the record. There's probably some tracks that might be hard for some to fathom, but I think, Firth of Fifth and Cinema Show and even Dancing with the Moonlit Night are just really great to show to any music fan. And of course, I Know What I Like is kind of a poppier track from them, at least from this period. So I think it's a good prog gateway album. I think this is a strong contender of one to show people if they really want to know what prog is about and get kind of a good feel for the genre. Show an album with Bill Bruford on drums, and this will be a repeat artist. I'll be showing them again, but I had to show Yes, of course, because I think that's the only albums I have on vinyl that feature Bill Bruford. So I'm picking Fragile. Of course, this is the Steven Wilson makes of Fragile, and just a brilliant album, and his drumming, of course, is brilliant. He even has kind of a solo spot on his drumming on here, and it's one of the classics of prog. I think it definitely is a worthy album, a great performance by him, and just a classic of the genre, just a must-have album for any prog fan. And I am a big fan of it. Of course, I've reacted with my wife to Roundabout, and just I love Heart of the Sunrise is one of my all-time favorite tracks. So definitely a great album to check out. And I know most of you watching this will know this album, but just wanted to show it off here. Next, we get to show a concept album. And once again, with prog, I have many concept albums to choose. I was trying to pick an artist, though, that I hadn't chosen yet, so I didn't go for something like The Lamb, because I already have featured Genesis, or even some, Yes concept albums, so forth. But I decided to go with more modern-ish prog here with Arion, Into the Electric Castle. I love Arion. I think he's brilliant. And to me, he's kind of the master of the modern concept album. And this is my favorite work of his, Into the Electric Castle. Just a really huge concept about this big kind of sci-fi epic story with a huge cast of characters from throughout history, all in this one location dealing with this big crazy event. And it's wild, it's crazy, it's fun. A lot of characters, there's vocalists doing all different kinds of voices. It's like an opera. I mean, it says space opera, but it's true. It has so many, all these different singers are playing different roles, and it really plays out as a story. So I think this is one of the best concept albums of all time. I really love this album and recommend it highly for anyone who may not know it yet. There's a bit of heaviness, but I think it's very proggy, very easy to jump into, and tells a very interesting story if you're into like the sci-fi realm. I think Arion and Arjen Lucassen is just really brilliant at sci-fi concept albums, so definitely recommend that one. Now, I was worried this next one show a female prog artist or band with a female lead, and as I thought about that, when I first saw that question, I was like, oh, do I not have a vinyl with a female lead? That's really not good. I need more female voices, and I love a lot of female-fronted prog groups, so just so happens I don't really have them necessarily on vinyl, I suppose. But I did find one. I found two examples. I do have a couple Renaissance albums on vinyl I thought about showing. But I decided to go with something a bit more modern and different. And this is Bent Knee and their most recent album, You Know What They Mean, is the name of the album. I really like this album. Bent Knee is a band it took me a while to get into because they're very quirky and different. The vocals are a little bit extreme at points, I would say, very expressive, and their music is very quirky and different and sometimes kind of angular and difficult to really approach. But I really like what they did on this record. They really found a good footing that really spoke to me, found solid songs that really have meant a lot to me. So I really appreciate this one. I think Catch Light in particular is just one of the best songs out there by any modern band. So this is just a fantastic record. Recommended, a great choice for a band that features female vocals. One of the best female vocalists out there, Courtney Swain, just really next level in her vocal abilities. Even though it took maybe some time for me to get used to it, once I did, I can appreciate the beauty and the just mind-blowing nature of their music and what they're doing. So definitely appreciate this as a new great prog band. Alright, so next we have Show a Prog's solo album. Someone who was in a prog band and released a solo record. This was another one that I struggled to find a great choice for, but I came across this one. Jordan Rudez, Wired for Madness. Of course, Jordan Rudez is part of Dream Theater. This is his latest solo work. I believe he had maybe kind of a lockdown solo piano kind of thing. But before that, this is his last big proggy solo album. And I really love this, especially the title track is really why I got this. Wired for Madness it's insane with all of its instrumental keyboard fireworks, and it just goes in a million different directions. And it's exactly what you'd expect from the wizard that is Jordan Rudez. Just so many ideas and so many things on display here. And I love the vinyl packaging. It's two LPs, and they're both different colors. One's blue, one's red, and so it's a cool package that I thought was fun. So definitely thought it would be cool to pick this one up. And so here we go, a solo record by Jordan Rudez. All right, favorite Roger Dean cover artwork, or show a favorite prog cover. So I decided to go for Roger Dean, but I didn't want to do the repeat of Yes, but we'll get to the repeat of Yes. But I didn't want to lean on that. Of course, Yes is famous for the Roger Dean artwork, but I have a more modern one that I wanted to submit here as my choice, and this is the Flower Kings and their album Islands. They got Roger Dean to do this cover art, and it's really beautiful to me. I've really always appreciated this, and the album itself is incredible. It's the latest in the Flower Kings discography. It came out last year, and it's a super strong album. They came back with a vengeance. This album, and of course the previous album, was their first in a while, but this one they really honed in on their sound, I feel like, and really captured something magical. It's a double album. It's a pretty expansive record with a lot on it, and I'm still digesting it even over 8 months later, or however long it's been. But it's a great record that I highly recommend to all fans of symphonic progressive rock and who love all the music that I tend to talk about. Anything Neil Morse related, Transatlantic, of course. This is right in that lane, and Roy Stolt is brilliant on this record. So definitely check this out. One of my favorite covers of the last couple years. Alright, so now we get to show a prog album released in 1971, which I didn't think at the outset would be that hard, but I struggled to find a choice. And I already showed one of them. I believe Fragile came out also in 1971, but I wanted to show the other side of the coin. The Yes album came out in 1971. This, of course, is the Steven Wilson remakes over there. This is just a classic album. It has so many classic songs that they would become super known for. Starship Trooper, I've Seen All the Good People. It's really a classic album, deserving of high praise, and it's a 50-year anniversary record. So definitely wanted to showcase that. Sorry I had to double up on Yes. I wanted a unique artist for each thing, but when it comes to those two questions, Bill Bruford and a 1971 album, all I had was Yes to cover those. So that's what you get, the Yes album. All right, now show a live prog album. Now here, this is another tricky one because I'm not really a live album guy. I like live shows, like visually. I like getting Blu-rays or DVDs of concerts and watching the music unfold in a live setting. But when it comes to just music listening, I tend to gravitate towards studio albums because I think that's the most pure version that the band intended to be heard. But I know a lot of people sometimes prefer live albums because of the energy and what the band can bring to it, and sometimes they put in unique elements into their live tracks that aren't part of the studio tracks. So there's a lot to dive into and appreciate. But I struggle a little bit with it. Maybe it's something I'll try harder to get more into in the future. But the one that I pulled out is this one. Spock's Beard Snow Live. They performed this at Morsefest. I actually attended this and I was blown away by it. They were incredible that night. And so this is kind of a memento of an actual concert I attended. And so it holds a special place in my heart. And Snow by Spock's Beard is just one of my all-time favorite albums. So to hear it played in its entirety, and when I never thought that would happen because shortly after this album, the Snow album came out, Neil Morse left the band. And so the chances of hearing Neil Morse play this album with Spock's Beard seemed impossible, but they did it. And it was kind of a one-off or two-off. They did a couple shows, I believe, of it, but a very rare show to see, and they really killed it. And this is a great album. Some people even hold this up higher. Some people even hold this up higher than the original studio album. And the original studio album is one I haven't been able to get on vinyl yet. So this is my only vinyl copy of Snow that I have. But I appreciate this one. It's a great live album and definitely recommend it. It's a perfect album to me. I love Snow. I think it's and once again, it's a concept album, great story, and one of the crowning achievements of Spock's Beard in my opinion. So great to have it here on vinyl. All right, now we're getting towards the end. Show the last prog album you purchased or were gifted. I just barely purchased this earlier this week, so I thought this was fitting. It's still in the plastic wrap. Kind of a random pickup. It wasn't one that was really on my radar, but I saw it kind of go on a deal, and it's one of my favorite albums from back in the day, and it is Queen 2. I decided to go ahead and pick it up. Brilliant album. It's maybe Queen isn't necessarily really a prog band, but I think this is about as proggy as they get, is on Queen 2. It's one of their early records where they were still kind of experimenting and figuring out their sound. A lot of brilliant stuff on here, especially on side 2 is fantastic, and so much great Freddie Mercury material. He's singing incredibly. There's a lot of great stuff. So really a fantastic record that deserves to be in the collection. I'm a huge Queen fan, and I love their classic period from back in these days, so definitely had to get this one when it came on a deal, and so here it is, Queen 2, the most recent album I've purchased. Of course, that's not necessarily true anymore because I just pre-ordered, another album this morning, but that's the latest one I've received, I'll say. So there we go. And now we have a few more here. Show prog album released within the last 25 years. This is of my wheelhouse. I love prog that's been released in the last 25 years. That's kind of where a lot of these picks have come from. So this was wide open. I could pick almost anything. So I decided to pick my album of the year from last year because I love the cover. I really was blown away by this album when it came out. It was by a band that wasn't really super on my radar, and I wasn't a huge fan of them until this came out. And it is this one, Love Over Fear by Pendragon. I fell in love with this. I think it's incredible. And look at that artwork. It just is so beautiful and just so inviting. And the music on it is just really amazing. It's beautiful, has a lot going for it. Just the guitar work is so incredible. The singing, it just has so many great memorable songs. It has kind of this laid back groovy vibe to it. And it's a lot more positive. Sometimes their later albums are a little bit heavier and aggressive, but this is kind of hearkening back to their older period, and it's a lot more light and a lot more fun and positive and uplifting. Eternal Light is one of my favorite tracks of last year, so thought this would be a cool thing to feature as an album that came out in the last 25 years. Really, the last year came out earlier last year, so fantastic record, highly recommended. This was my album of the year last year, so really love this record quite a bit. So, show a prog album with an incredible guitar solo. There's a lot, there's a lot of great. This was a hard one for me because I tend to think of the music as a whole, so I don't really think about the standout. What was the best guitar solo? It just kind of is part of the piece for me. But I picked a recent album that you can't argue that this doesn't have some incredible guitar solos and guitar playing, and that's the Liquid Tension Experiment 3. With John Petrucci is next level guitarist. He's a guitar star. He's amazing at his instrument. He does things that are mind-boggling. And so I definitely felt like this deserved a spot here as an incredible guitar solo album. And of course, it's incredible for all instrumental stuff. There's incredible, keyboard solos, bass solos, drum solos. They all get chances to shine and showcase their abilities. That's what Liquid Tension is all about. There's definitely some great guitar moments and great guitar soloing. And so I think this has incredible guitar playing all the way around, and I thought it fit really well with this prompt of great, incredible guitar soloing. So the final prompt here is, what prog album is at the top of your want list? And I have a huge wish list of vinyls because I'm trying really hard to build up my collection. I have most of these albums on CD. I've built up a really impressive, for me at least, it's a humble collection, but it's impressive to me, of great prog CDs that I really love. And so vinyl is a new thing. I really love vinyl, though. It's fun as a collector. It gives you kind of this bigger artwork and packaging, and gives more of like a tactile feel to this music. It gives you kind of this piece of work that you can put on a table and actually play physically. Where before that I was really diving into the digital side, which I think is perfectly fine and all sounds really great. I don't really go into vinyl for sound quality. I think it sounds great, but I don't think it sounds any better than, a CD or a really good digital copy. But anyways, I digress. But when it comes to top of my want list, there's so many, and they all kind of volley for the top spot of my want list. One that kind of came to mind because it's a classic album, one of my favorite all-time classic prog albums that I just don't have and should. Of course, it's not an album that's hard to find. It should be easy to find. It's just I haven't picked it up yet for whatever reason. Is Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. I would love to have that one to kind of round out the classics of the albums that came out in the 70s that are just total seminal, just masterpiece works of prog. I think that's a glaring omission currently in my vinyl collection. Of course, I have it on CD, and so it's not one that I don't own in any way, shape, or form, but it's just one I haven't picked up yet on vinyl. So I thought that was a strong one on my want list. And there's so many. I've been really jealous of the Mars Volta package, the big box set that I've seen people mention that has all the Mars Volta records. I really like Mars Volta, but it's just way out of my price range, and I believe it's sold out by now. But they were releasing the albums individually, and so those are kind of on my want list. I have purchased one, but they're really pricey, and so I'm kind of trying to temper myself and not just go overboard and buy all of them individually. So I'm trying to kind of pick and choose which ones are worth it to me. But those albums would be high on my want list as well. Francis the Mute by Mars Volta in particular, or even Bedlam and Goliath, which I really love by them. So I did get Deloused in the Comatorium. I have that on order. But the other albums I'm still deciding upon. So that is also heavy on my wish list. So those are the albums that I thought of. So there you go. There's my prog rock vinyl tag. Hopefully this was interesting and gives you kind of an insight into my collection. I've been building it slowly. I have a pretty good stack of vinyl records now, and I'm pretty happy with so far, but I have a lot more to go, a lot more to collect. So hopefully this was fun for you guys. So thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you like what I do here. Please check out all those other YouTube videos that I mentioned of other people doing the vinyl prog rock tag. There's many of them out there. If you just search for prog rock vinyl tag, you'll find a bunch. But those are the particular ones that I've seen and from YouTubers that I've interacted with. So there you have it. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you've enjoyed some of these picks, and please give your own in the comments. So thank you guys again, and keep enjoying the music. Thank you.